Welcome guys for another one of my videos. Today of course it's Wednesday, you know what that means. It's another fantasy football talk, and today I'm gonna do something a little bit different here as I did last week. I'm gonna change things up again, and I'm doing two videos today. First off, the first video that I'm doing right now and you're watching right now will be the news around the NFL. Of course, there has been a lot of news the last couple of days with the trade deadline and the Cleveland Browns and all that stuff going on. And in the second video, which will be uploaded later on, is of course my predictions for this week. I'm going to do the same that I did last week. And yeah, right now the news in the NFL, of course, I've mentioned it. The Cleveland Browns are a big topic right now, with them firing Hue Jackson as their head coach. Finally, after 2.5 years of being dreadful in the league, they finally fired Hue Jackson after only winning 3 games in 40 games with the Cleveland Browns. Of course, the one tie to begin the season against the Steelers this year might be a win for the Browns, actually. But they finally cut cords with Hue Jackson right now. Greg Williams is their interim head coach for the time they don't have a real head coach right now. I think for the Cleveland Browns, it's the right decision to finally get rid of Hue Jackson, because I think this season Hue Jackson lost them a lot of games, actually, with his use of timeouts. He didn't manage the clock that well. I don't think that his way of coaching the team really helped the team further, or it didn't develop the players, or it didn't help the players to go to their full potential, as you saw with, or still see with, players like Jarvis Landry right now. He is not the same guy that he was back in Miami, and so on and so forth. There are a couple of examples for that kind of play. Hue Jackson is just not the right head coach for the NFL. He might get a job anywhere else. I don't know. He might be with, I don't know. I think the Cardinals might need another head coach. I don't know if Hue Jackson actually should take another head coach job in the NFL. I don't think he's really fit for the stuff, but that's not the topic right now. Of course, I want to talk about what is going on with the Cleveland Browns going forward as the rest of the season. As I've already said, as an interim head coach, Greg Williams already stepped in, but there are a couple of candidates who should, or one of them might take over the head coaching job in Cleveland. And right now, one of the front runners is Lincoln Riley, the head coach of Oklahoma. It would kind of fit well with I think he's a good head coach for the NFL. He might be able to get the Browns back on track. He might be able to get a better connection with the players to get them to their full potential, which they really don't show in Cleveland right now. And I think it's a big part is Hue Jackson. I don't know if you guys watched Hard Knocks on HBO this summer. I didn't really get a good. I think Hue Jackson had a really good relationship with his players. Just I think the way he coached them didn't really show much of how he wants to improve them to be better football players or anything. I just didn't get a good head coach vibe off of him, football wise. Socially, he might be a great coach for the players, but that's not what you want to get out of your head coach in a football team. Of course, that's also an important part, but you want him to be competent in the football stuff and bring your players forward. And yeah, like I said, get them to play at their best, which Hue Jackson just didn't do. Another candidate for the head coach's job in Cleveland right now is Matt Campbell from Iowa State. He's the head coach there. I think it's about the same as with Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma right there. It's just two head coaches in the college right now that could really step up to the NFL right now. And the Cleveland Browns are, I think, a pretty good fit for them. A young team that they can develop and all that stuff. A lot of guys that are just out of college, rookies, second-year players and all that. So I think they have a kind of a feel for the younger players right now, which they can develop still out of college. And I think a head coach from college right now would be a great option for Cleveland. I don't know if they pull the trigger right now during the season or if they just move forward with Greg Williams for the rest of the season and search a head coach in the offseason. Of course, there are also a couple of options out of the NFL right now. For example, there is the defensive coordinator from the Minnesota Vikings, George Edwards, which I don't think he will actually go away from Minnesota during the season. So he might be actually a candidate for the offseason right now. Also, another really interesting option that I've read about in the last couple of days, or well, not the it was only announced a couple of days ago, but that I've read more in articles that mentioned who might be the next head coach for Cleveland is Zay Taylor, the current QB coach for the LA Rams. I don't know if the Rams actually let their QB coach go right now with a young quarterback like Jared Goff, but I I think it would be a great option to because he learned from Sean McVay and all that stuff, and I think he might be a great option. But I don't think that the Rams are letting him leave right now, even for a head coaching job. And well, that's it for Cleveland right now. I think it's gonna be a college coach that's gonna take over for Cleveland, but I think it's gonna be next season. They start fresh with a new rookie class then, but I'm not gonna place any. I don't know who's gonna be the head coach next year. I just think they're gonna go with a college head coach. And knowing the Cleveland Browns, it's probably someone nobody has on his list right now, and nobody thinks should be in the NFL right now. And the Browns are probably gonna butcher that decision again, like they did for the last I don't know how many years for now with every decision they made so far. But yeah, moving on right now from the Cleveland Browns to the trade deadline. Of course, it was yesterday. A couple of big trades were announced yesterday. For example, Ty Montgomery is going from the Green Bay Packers to the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, the Ravens are looking for kind of a better option. I don't know if I'd say better, but especially John Harbaugh. Didn't really like. I think it was Alex Collins. Sorry if it was Buck Allen, but one of the two it was. So he went for Ty Montgomery, which actually did pretty well before his injuries with the Green Bay Packers the last 2-3 years. He was really fantasy relevant. And I think now that he might actually get more snaps in the Baltimore offense, he might be again relevant in fantasy football on a weekly basis. So keep an eye out for him. If you're short on running backs, you might want to pull the trigger right now. He might be a good sleeper for the coming weeks and actually for the playoffs with the Baltimore Ravens for your fantasy team. Okay, another news are with the Detroit Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, the Detroit Lions have traded Golden Tate to the Philadelphia Eagles, adding more depth to the wide receiver position for the Philadelphia Eagles, and another weapon for Carson Wentz beside Alshon Jeffrey. But I don't know what that deal was about for Detroit, because Golden Tate, in my opinion, is their best receiver right now. His usage might not have been the best this season, but still, now you got Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay, but you don't really have a veteran there. And yeah, fully got stronger again. They are not the team that they were at this point last season, but again, they are getting more and more players like they did last year to get their team to a point where they can go back to being a pretty good team, if not a contender, if they get back into form. And yeah, Detroit, I think, just gave up one of their biggest weapons, so they might not be that competitive anymore for the rest of the season. Not that they actually were at the beginning of the season. But yeah, for the fantasy value, of course, it might take a dip for Alshon Jeffrey in Philadelphia right now with Golden Tate on their roster. And I think for Golden Tate, actually, it means a slight uptick in fantasy points, as I think Carson Wentz is the better quarterback this year than Matt Stafford, or not the better quarterback, but just the better system for a wide receiver right now. And of course, for the two Detroit wide receivers that I mentioned, Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay, their value is going up a lot, or not a lot, but they are getting more and more points each week, and or more. They should be getting more points now that Golden Tate is gone from Detroit and is taking away their targets and all that stuff. So if you are short on wide receivers and one of them is still available in your league, I would at least bench him for now. In deeper leagues, for sure. In standard leagues, like 10 or 12 team leagues, it depends. If you're really in need for a wide receiver, go get them if they're available. If not, I wait a little bit and see how the Detroit offense actually looks right now after they traded away Golden Tate. But I'd be pretty confident that either Marvin Jones or Kenny Golladay. I'm probably gonna say Kenny Golladay is a little bit the number one right now, I would say, but I would put Kenny Golladay over Marvin Lewis right now, or Marvin Jones, sorry, not Marvin Lewis. Marvin Jones right now in Detroit as their number one wide receiver, fantasy wise at least. Another topic for another receiver right now, of course, is Demaryius Thomas going from the Denver Broncos to the Houston Texans, which is a big trade for the Houston Texans right now after they just lost Will Fuller in the Thursday night game against Miami with an ACL tear, which was, of course, also big news that Will Fuller, who performed pretty well in fantasy this year so far as the number 2 wide receiver for Houston, now is out for the rest of the season. And now they got Demaryius Thomas, which is one of the, I wouldn't say one of the best, but a really good receiver in the NFL right now. And as a compliment to DeAndre Hopkins, it's gonna be heaven for Deshaun Watson. But I think Demaryius Thomas value will increase by this trade a lot, because Deshaun Watson is just an incredible quarterback. And I think even if he doesn't get as many targets as he did in Denver, there will be more passes that he will actually catch and more targets, I think. But of course, DeAndre Hopkins will take away more and more targets from him. Or, yeah, you know what I mean. But, so that might hinder his fantasy value a little bit. But still, Demaryius Thomas is a perfect situation right there in Houston for him. So, of course, he probably won't be available in your league right now. If you're not in a league with, I don't know, 4 people probably, then I wouldn't pick him up now either. But if you're in a 10-team, 12-team league, don't drop Demaryius Thomas right now. He is in a really good position there in Houston, and I think that his fantasy value actually increases by this trade. Of course, there is another wide receiver news right now concerning the Seattle Seahawks, who released Brandon Marshall yesterday. Of course, this is not really fantasy relevant at all, because Brandon Marshall did not really play any snaps or get any targets for the Seattle Seahawks at all. So there might be a slight increase for Tyler Lockett and Doug Baldwin in the receiving game, but Brandon Marshall was basically their number 4 or number 5 wide receiver this year. So it might be a slight increase for the wide receivers, for the other wide receivers there. but it's not really that fantasy relevant. I just wanted to mention it for anybody who might be interested in Brandon Marshall for any reason in fantasy this year. And yeah, I think that's the news for this week right now. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I covered pretty much everything or a lot that took place this week in the NFL. And yeah, if you want to say something else or wanted to hear something else that I didn't cover here, please let me know in the comments if I missed anything there or what I could do better in the future. Just leave a comment down below. Let me know what you want me to do in the future. Kind of get a feel for what the audience wants and make my content better. And of course, if you're new to the channel and watching this right now, and this is the first video that you watch on my channel, please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to get notified when new videos come out. I would really appreciate if you could do that for me, because I want to grow my audience here on YouTube, and the bigger audience that I have, the more feedback I can get and the better the content is that I can make for you guys. So please help me grow my channel, and yeah, I hope I'll see you in my next video again, but until then, bye.